We're going to go ahead and get started on the registration information. And this is jam-packed with information. So I encourage anyone, especially those new to Hagerty High School, to take a look at some of the things that we've posted on here. I'm going to start with our class of 2025, our rising freshmen. So one of the most common questions that I've been getting is, how do we find our registration card? So for our rising freshmen, you would click on that class of 2025. We have a timeline, the registration procedures, a great registration video, our elective course options, the curriculum guide that you can scroll through. Curriculum guide is great with answering questions that you might have about the classes that we offer. This will give you a great explanation of what those courses are like. And then the one I was trying to find here, our freshman registration cards. So these should look similar. For our feeder middle schools, that's Jackson Heights and Lawton Childs, these will be turned in, I believe it is March 1st. So when we get back next week. And on here you can see you're selecting a level, standard, honors, gifted. Gifted would be if you are already identified in the gifted program, and it guarantees that your teacher is gifted certified. For math, we start with Algebra 1. Now, some students, this is common, may have Algebra 1 coming into 9th grade. You could start directly in geometry. If you have geometry, you could be starting directly in Algebra 2. Beyond that, I would recommend speaking with your counselor just to get some advisement on what the next course would be. We have English, science, and math. Now what you're going to notice is social studies is not there in 9th grade. That is an optional elective. So when we scroll on down here, we can see some of our elective options, and you'll see world geography right under the academic electives. Again, that's an optional class. If your student is a 4-year college-bound student, we'd advise taking that social studies, and we offer it both world geography standard and AP human geography. Anytime you hear AP, think college level course, and be prepared to treat it as such, even as a 9th grader. We have physical education listed in here. I would always tell our rising 9th graders that they should get their PE credit out of the way, but it's not required. We do advise it because you don't want to be that senior sitting in a class full of 9th graders. After you have selected from your core classes, you're going to want to scroll and look at the elective options, where the top instruction says to rank your choices 1 through 6. So the reason that we do that is after your 3 cores in 9th grade, you're going to be able to fill your schedule with things like our world languages over here, maybe a fine art credit. We have some career tracks up top. The reason that we ask for 1 through 6 is because we want to have a little bit of variety. We can't always guarantee that you're going to get the exact 7-period schedule that you desire. We want to make sure that you give us some backup options, some alternates, so that if we can't fit in the ideal schedule for you, then we're able to get classes that you at least still have an interest in taking. One question that I know came up earlier today was, is there a lot of competition for the classes that we are indicating on our registration card? And the answer to that is really, it's no. There's not competition because we start this process in February. We try to get a very accurate idea of what classes are being signed up for, so that by May, when we have all of your requests in our computer, we can start building a master schedule. And what you fill out on these registration cards is how we determine our hiring process, how we build sections of certain classes. Because of that, when we start up classes in August, it will be very difficult to approve any schedule changes. Again, that is because we have built the master schedule based on the selections that are made on these registration cards. At the moment, we have been told to operate under the understanding that we're going to be returning to face-to-face for our classes, so not the connect and save my seat options. Could that change? Yes, but we are operating under the assumption that we are back in face-to-face. So if you are electing to take anything on virtual, you would want to indicate that on the registration card. You could just put next to the class that you check, virtual off-campus 1 or virtual on-campus. If you choose to do an on-campus lab, just keep in mind you are restricted to 1 period of lab. After that registration piece, we also have our curriculum night located up here. Curriculum night would be a great way to watch presentations on your core subjects. A lot of our elective options are mentioned on here. One of the things that I really encourage for our rising ninth graders is the curriculum overview presentation. That will go as far as telling you how to submit your registration card. So for instance, we're getting a lot of questions about my student has saved my seat. How do they submit their registration card? And there is a Hagerty High School website, or sorry, email address, and it is HHS, as in Hagerty High School, dash student services at scps.us. That's SCPS as in Seminole County Public Schools. Similarly, we're getting questions, since my student is in the Save My Seat option, we're unable to get teacher signatures. For this year, we understand that that's not always going to be possible. So the teacher signatures are not required. However, we do encourage you to have that conversation, even if it's with your virtual teacher, about how they advise you for your next class. We just want to be sure that discussions are being had and you're researching some of these courses so that nobody's surprised come August. Going to try to close out here. I mentioned the curriculum night overview. This is just one slide from that. So it kind of gives you some keys, like is the top of the card completed? Did you select 7 credits? Now there is a difference between credits and classes. Some are semester long, others are year long. So if you select a semester long class, just make sure you pair it with another semester long class so that we can give you a full year long course. You don't want any holes in your schedule. You want to make sure you have alternates, and we want to make sure someone at home has signed the card, because ultimately we are public school. We want to defer to the selections that you make. If a teacher has input their recommendation on a class and it is not the course that you want, for instance, your 10th grade English teacher says they think AP Lang is the best choice for you, and you're leaning towards honors English, you do have the opportunity to put in your course request, and we will defer to the parent guardian over our teacher recommendation. Then looking over here on our Hagerty High School website, I'm going to head back to that. This is filled with information. I'm just kind of scrolling through some of our front page, so you can see there's tutoring available, parent-student videos. One thing that we're always going to refer back to is our Student Services tab. And on here, you can find out general information, counselor responsibilities. Some of the things I want to kind of touch on are our community service options. These can begin as soon as the summer following 8th grade. So you can begin collecting your hours. Community service is not required for graduation, but it is required as part of the Bright Futures Scholarship. So if you know you're going to be pursuing the scholarship, that is something that you want to consider. I like to tell students to knock it out early because the further along you go in high school, the more social commitments are going to pick up, after school commitments are going to pick up. The earlier you get a handle on these hours, the better. For every place that you volunteer, there does need to be an application page, and that is the third page of this document. You can see here, do not worry about where it says principal or designee signature. This is a county form, and Hagerty High School encourages student responsibility, so we will default to what your student selects. The other attachment on here is going to be volunteer hours log, and that's where you log all of the hours that you're doing throughout your time volunteering. Also available on the Student Services tab, information about Bright Futures. So I know I just referenced it. If you're not familiar with it, maybe you're out of state transferring in. This is a great program that can pay up to 100% of in-state tuition. There's also scholarship information for our existing students. That's current 9th through 11th graders. If the student wants to make an appointment with their counselor, they have the opportunity to do that. We have information on dual enrollment. I know that is coming up as a question. So for the dual enrollment, first thing that is required is a college-ready test score and a 3.0 GPA. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and take a look at some of the questions that are rolling in. Just go through their course catalog. You can take any class available on virtual school. However, if you are taking the class on our on-campus lab, it must be through SCVS, as it is an SCVS funded lab. Touching back on dual enrollment, I was mentioning the college-ready test scores are required. At the moment, we are not handling dual enrollment until after spring break, and that is also has to do with Seminole State not releasing their dual enrollment calendar, so we can't even tell you what classes will be offered until that calendar is available. You can of course do the general research, and I can see Ms. Toro, thank you very much, just posted that Seminole State dual enrollment website. For those dual enrollment classes, we always do caution, just keep in mind that is the beginning of your college transcript. That will follow you. It can have impact on college admissions as well as grad school admissions and scholarships. So everything that you do as a high school student through dual enrollment impacts your college GPA. Just kind of keep that in mind as you're making your selections. If you are determined to take a dual enrollment course, and of course the biggest benefit there is that that is a class paid for that you will not have to take down the road. That's the big benefit of dual enrollment, but just keep in mind how that can impact you down the road. Do any of my counselors want to tell me any reoccurring questions that maybe I need to touch on? So students will register in Skyward, and that is for their elective options. The teachers will be inputting their core class recommendations, and you would fill out a Google Doc form if you're interested in changing the teacher recommendation on courses. For virtual school, I'm gonna have to reshare my screen again here. All right, so I'm back on the HHS registration page, and remember, I accessed that just by going through the Hagerty High School main website and clicking on this link. From here, I'm going to go to really any of the class of, so we'll stick with our rising ninth graders helpful links. And on here, I just want to take a moment to talk about virtual school. So in addition to our 7-period scheduled day at Hagerty High School, you could be taking a virtual class in addition to your 7 periods. You could be taking it as part of your schedule. If you're taking it as part of your schedule, you're going to want to register for your SCVS class. So all I did there was click on SCVS registration. You can indicate on your registration card that you'll be taking a virtual class. What you will see is we will place you in the brick and mortar setting face-to-face class until you follow these steps of signing up for the virtual class. So if you were interested in taking your honors biology class, you would come on here, click to register. They have already opened it so that you can select your classes with a start date of August 1st. If you select a class with a start date of August 1st, that will count as part of your fall schedule. After you've successfully registered through the SCVS, you're going to go to our virtual school application form and input some information here. So you're going to submit form for each virtual course that you request, and this is where you're going to be telling us what virtual class you've signed up for, what needs to be dropped. So keeping with that biology as an example, if you've signed up for biology and you need us to drop the face-to-face biology, you're going to just type in the same course. When will you take this class? All year, or maybe just semester 1. This form is the way that you're telling the counselor, hey, I've signed up for a virtual class, can you please go approve it? And it will also at that point tell us we need to change your schedule to remove you from the face-to-face class. The reason that we do that is it's a checks and balances. We see the registration cards, we know that you're indicating virtual school, but we want to make sure that you are successfully registering for that class so that August doesn't come around, and if you did not take the steps of signing up for the class, we've got the backup option in place. We've got you taken care of in a face-to-face class. If you're interested in taking summer virtual school, you do not need to indicate it on your registration card. For any students that are interested in taking leadership as an elective, you could, you want to make sure that you fill out the leadership application. Sorry, I'm trying to read some questions as we go. When I have a shared screen, I cannot read the chat, so let me back out of here again. All right. So if you're completing a class like PE over summer, as long as your virtual account is with Hagerty High School, we will get that class added to your transcript. So taking a class over summer is a great way to get started. If you are an existing high school student, so 9th through 11th grade, and you finish with anything below a C in a core class, I would strongly recommend taking D's for grade forgiveness over. You can do that by semester. In virtual school, it's called segments. So if you, let's say, got a D in US history semester 2, you would select US history segment 2 and do the exact same class. So if you took honors the first time around, you need to take honors the second time around for grade forgiveness. If you get an F, you are required to get that credit. So whether you do it through summer school at Hagerty or virtually, we can still get that to not negatively impact your GPA. I'm gonna scroll up. It looks like we are having a very active questions here. So, I'll actually just let my counselors know if anybody wants to message me, just let me know what topics to cover. For everybody else, keep respond or posting your questions to everybody and not privately because I'm not seeing every message. A lot of the information that I can see us going over, I will just emphasize that registration website. I only covered the rising ninth graders, and even that was only done in minor detail because by watching, share my screen again. So let's say even our rising seniors. When I come over here and click on the registration procedures, again, gives you a good idea of when things are due, how your core classes will be input, if you want to change your academic recommendations, there it mentions the Google form that will become available in March. Can also reference back to curriculum night. Those actually include video presentations that will really break down, especially for electives. I know for a lot of our core academic classes, it's pretty straightforward what you're going to be taking. So curriculum night does a great job of breaking down those electives. The classes, I told the student today, it's the curse of options. Our students are given so many choices that it actually becomes stressful picking out some of these. Those presentations are a great way to give your student a better idea of what they're signing up for. I mentioned that once fall gets going, it's going to be very hard to change schedules. So I encourage you to watch those videos, really have a strong grasp of what you're signing up for, because a lot of those electives are year-long commitments. For our feeder schools, your information automatically rolls over. We get it from the middle schools. For anyone that is new to Seminole County Public Schools and you need to complete your enrollment process, you can kind of see where my mouse is emphasizing down here. But by clicking on here, you can get information on what is required for you to register your student. I believe we are also going to be using some of the chats that are being answered by the counselors to create a Q&A. So some of the frequently asked questions we will be able to reference from here. Okay, covered the virtual content. Keep in mind, this year has looked a little different than most, but in fall, we will again be requiring a 7-period schedule, so full 7 classes. For seniors, if you are in good standing and have all of your credits, we will allow for 1 free period. So seniors will be able to take 6 classes. I'm just scrolling through some of the chat questions, and I am seeing a couple about the charter schools and the non-feeder schools. So hopefully that answered the questions about make sure you do that enrollment piece in May. You'll still submit the registration card the same way, the HHS-student services at scps.us email. We won't be able to input your courses until you are enrolled with us, but I mentioned earlier, there's not a competition in terms of who gets the classes. In other words, if you get it turned in March versus in May, it will not make a difference in terms of your likelihood of getting that class. We don't build a master schedule until summer, and we don't run our scheduling system until July, so that all of those families that move here over summer have equal opportunities. If we come from Jackson Heights, you are automatically enrolled, yes. So our feeder schools are enrolled with us, and we are able to start inputting those course requests. For current students, our registration timeline included our teacher recommendations. That was this week, and those, I believe, there is a team working over the weekend even to get those requests in, so that starting next week, our current students should be able to view those requests. So I believe the question, how do we know we received the course choice? That would be at schedule pickup, but again, for your core classes, you're going to get the class that you indicate. The only time that we might use an alternate is for your electives. So I should mention that in our registration cards, when you're doing your alternates, you only need alternates for elective classes. Then the week of schedule pickup, the schedules will go what's called live on Skyward. So students will be able to log into their Skyward and see their actual schedule. You'll probably get an email that goes out that says these schedules are tentative, and that's because in the first week of school, we're still balancing classes. Classes will get collapsed, other sections will be built, students will move around, but it should at least give you a pretty good idea of what your schedule is going to look like. If you have submitted an application in Skyward, just make sure that you have completed that enrollment checklist. And if you are in the last names A through M as in maybe, I'm gonna shamelessly plug myself, then the secretary in charge of that would be Miss Candice Barrett Johnson. And if your last name is N through Z, the secretary in charge of that would be Miss Amaya Moore. In terms of ninth graders that are maximizing rigor, we do have an AP biology class. Just keep in mind that class we typically recommend for students that have been exposed to a year-long biology science class. AP Human is a great introductory AP class for ninth graders. We also have AP Comp Sci as classes that are available for AP as early as ninth grade. I'll touch on the diploma pathways. So there's a lot of confusion about, there's standard diploma, scholars diploma, scholars with distinction, and what is the differences between all of these. Seminole County scholars and scholars with distinction diplomas are really designed to just encourage students to keep taking the most amount of rigor that they can be academically successful in. The reason that I really emphasize academically successful in is because when you get up to the levels of scholars with distinction and it's requiring 6 AP classes, that fine print includes you have to maintain a B or higher for every semester. So if you get a C in one semester, that class cannot count towards one of your 6. If your child is taking 4 AP classes and pulling their hair out at night and struggling to get by with C's, they are not doing themselves any favor. So you just want to keep a balance in terms of these schedules that you're selecting. A lot of the times also our teachers will input a recommendation of this is what class I think you should take. They are looking at it from the perspective of their one subject. They don't see what all of the other teachers have suggested for your child's entire schedule. So that's why we really encourage you to look at the recommendations, but make the decision that will be best for you. Because again, once we get going in fall, it's going to be very hard to change those schedules. Sorry, anytime I get quiet, it's just me scrolling through the chat just to make sure we're able to answer all these questions. It looks like my counselors here are doing a great job of getting to everyone. Recommendations for a successful freshman year. We used to have a presentation where the slide would just flash across the screen, 9th grade counts. Just like if you have a student that's in 8th grade taking Algebra 1 or Spanish 1, those are classes that are impacting their high school GPA. And it is very difficult for a 9th grader to think to senior year and think about what this GPA means and how this will impact college applications. But the reality is applications are built on the GPA created in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. So the classes that they take in 9th grade matter. And that really needs to be hammered in. The phone can be used as your friend or your enemy. It's either the biggest distraction, or if used correctly, it can be used to help you set your reminders, research your work. Organization with 9th graders, I call it 9th grade male syndrome. It seems to be an issue every year. So if you have that child that's struggling with organization, you're not alone, I promise. But leaning into a lot of what is available at Hagerty High School. So there's tutoring options, but students have to advocate for themselves. They need to let us know when that's something they want to pursue. And completing all of your assignments. That's the biggest difference from 8th to 9th grade is in 8th grade, you could probably get away with not regularly submitting your homework. In 9th grade, there is no faster way to tank your grade than by not submitting work. And for parents, if you are confused about, well, my child's telling me that their work just hasn't been graded yet. If that is something you're hearing and you go in Skyward and see it shows a 0, that means it has been graded and it was given 0 points. Anytime one of our teachers is not grading the work yet, it will show up as an asterisk. Therefore, it will not negatively impact their grade. Judging by the last comment in the chat, I think we're caught up on our questions. So ideally, you'll hear less of my voice now, and we'll start finalizing any questions we might have missed. The short answer to that question about if you get to senior year and you need 6 classes, can you still do an elective that you didn't get? Yes. For the, you happen to use culinary as an example. If you're selecting something like culinary 1, when the classes are filling up, so again, that will not happen until we run our auto scheduler, but freshmen will be given priority because they will have the opportunity to take culinary 2, 3, 4, and that's how those teachers are able to build their program. But if there are other electives like that don't necessarily have levels to them, then absolutely. For finding out which classes are year-long versus semester-long, best thing to do is access the curriculum guide. And again, curriculum guide is available on the Hagerty High School website or through that registration website link that we started with. I typically say go to the end of it. One of the last pages will just have a breakdown of every class that's offered, what the course number is, and whether it is a year-long versus a semester-long. In terms of recommending specific classes for dual enrollment, the best thing to do is to get your college ready test score. Me personally, I advise the ACT or SAT because we do offer those to our juniors for free. But basically, you want to find out what you're going to be eligible for first. So the college ready test score determines where you're even eligible. And then we can start looking at specific classes, but those are going to be classes required for graduation. Career Academy electives, once you get, so kind of like along the same lines of the culinary question, once you get to the 3rd level of those career electives, they start being honors weighted. In terms of figuring out which classes you need over your 4 years of Hagerty High School, inside the curriculum guide, it does map out your core class requirements over the 4 years. So for instance, in science, 9th grade is biology, 10th is chemistry, 11th is physics. Senior year, you have a couple of class options to pick from. You're really just determining, do you want to be taking standard honors AP? We're getting a lot of questions about curriculum guide, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen again. All right. I'm gonna go to the Hagerty High School website, so our main page, and under Student Services tab, there is the curriculum guide. So you can see this says 32 pages. Maybe I'll zoom in a little. We have all of the magnet school program options, some of the after school programs. So Hagerty High School's emphasis is modeling and simulation. And now it's gonna click by very quickly because I'm just gonna go straight to the end to show everybody what I was talking about on the breakdown of classes. So the last pages will just tell you everything by section. So under music, you can find all of our chorus classes, dance classes, theater. Then it changes to physical education. You can find out all about our PEs. And next to it, it will say 0.5 versus 1.0. So either a half credit or a full credit. If it says yes here, then that means it is a performing fine art credit. And it also does the same thing for our core academics. So that page is very helpful when filling out your registration card. And then I'm just working my way backwards through the registration card. These are where it will tell you the breakdown of what is offered through that class. So if you're ever not sure, like, what does SAT prep entail? Here's a good description of it. I think we're slowing down on questions. So just a reminder, if you are an existing student, 9th through 11th grade, with questions still to go, send those your counselor's way. Give us our job security here. For our current 8th graders, your counselors have been through this process many times with us, and they are well versed in how to answer your questions. So we do ask that you continue to direct your questions to your existing counselor for now. And I think question just popped up. Where do I fill out the registration form? So the registration form, again, through that registration link, you click on the class of. So let's say your child is an 8th grader, click on the class of 2025. One of the options there will be a registration card. You can click on it, print it, fill it out, and then you will scan and email that back to the website listed on there, or again, the email address listed on there, hhs-studentservices@scps.us. For current Hagerty High School students, we have last year's curriculum guide still available. The current year's curriculum guide did not get sent to print. We went full digital for that one. If a student took a French on virtual, if they took a class that was on virtual called M/J, then that was a middle school French class. But if they just took French 1, the high school credit online, then yes, it does count as part of their high school transcript, and it will count for credit. We do not require a world language for graduation. That's another common misconception. However, 2 years are required for a 4-year college admissions. If your student knows that they are 4-year college bound, we advise starting that world language. Make sure you get in at least 2 consecutive years. One way to set yourself apart on college applications is by taking those additional year 3 and year 4. At the moment, we have not heard that Seminole Connect will be available. We've been told to operate under the assumption that we will be face-to-face. In the past, we've always had the virtual flex options as well. So there are opportunities to take online classes, but we anticipate returning face-to-face. That, of course, can change. We don't, know how things will look in May, but we should have more answers on that then. And if we're going to change the modalities of how we offer our classes, then I'm sure another survey will go out to let parents indicate if they would like to switch anything to Connect. GPA is calculated on a 4.0 scale, and everything is semesterized. So it's not done by quarter, it's done by semester. Early childhood is 1 credit. To identify who your counselor is, if you can use the Hagerty High School website, Student Services, General Info, or Counselor Responsibilities, either of those will break down which counselors are assigned to which students. SCVS summer courses need to be submitted for approval just before we leave for summer break. So as long as you get those in, I mean, try to keep in mind by mid-May, counselors are preparing for graduation and getting ready for next year. So you probably want to get those in by early May, but technically you have through the end of the school year. Again, for core classes or for, I know I mentioned geography and AP Human are are electives, but if you select AP Human or World Geography, you will get that class. So if you sign up for it and there is a summer assignment, then you should anticipate doing the summer assignment. I don't know definitively that there will be a summer assignment yet. I do know our principal's philosophy is that just like as educators, we need a break for summer. Your students do too. So the Hagerty philosophy is to try to ease up on summer assignments. Great point, Ms. Toro. If you're signing up for a summer class on virtual school, you want a start date of June 1st. Obviously, if you know that you're planning a trip June 1st through 8th, you could make your start date June 9th. Mr. Rawls, I have not seen that issue. If you want to just shoot me an email, I can get you a link to the blank registration card. There should not be any type of username password. For our current students, so 9 through 11th graders, most likely you know who your counselor is. If you have a question, send them an email. And then for my specific or any counselor's email address, those are on the Hagerty High School website under the staff contact page. Typically, like for me, for instance, it is our name with an underscore. So for me, Nick, Nick underscore maybe, MABY at scps.k12.fl.us. They wouldn't let us make it any longer. Yes, our PTSA at Hagerty High School is awesome. In addition to selling some great gear that can get ninth graders looking like Huskies on day one, there's also a school store that's open during lunchtime. And hopefully next year we'll have a little more ability to connect with our students through our newcomers program that PTSA also runs. So if you're an interested parent, our PTSA is definitely a great way to get involved. Coming from the private schools, yes, you would still email those registration cards. I know 3-1 is coming up quite soon, so you can also go by, as long as it's in by the 3/11 that our current students are facing. We are running into our final few minutes here. Hopefully we were able to tackle everyone's questions. If not, I think I've already mentioned, keep asking away, whether it is your Hagerty counselor, or if you are in Jackson Heights, Lawton Childs, the middle school counselors there. Transition 504 meetings I know are being scheduled at the moment, so you may already have a meeting planned with a Hagerty counselor in that case. We look forward to welcoming all of your students to Hagerty High School, and as always, go Huskies!